Hello, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're going to talk about something that is incredibly important but often overlooked: building an emergency fund. Life is unpredictable, and having a financial safety net can provide peace of mind during tough times. Let me tell you a little anecdote. My friend Sarah was living paycheck to paycheck, like many of us. She never thought much about saving money for an emergency, but one day she was in a car accident that left her unable to work for several months. She quickly realized how important it is to have an emergency fund, and that's why we're going to talk about how to build one. First, let's talk about why an emergency fund is so important. According to a recent study, 60% of Americans don't have enough savings to cover a $1,000 emergency expense. That's a scary thought. Without an emergency fund, unexpected expenses can lead to debt, financial stress, and even bankruptcy. So, how much should you save in your emergency fund? Experts recommend having at least 3 to 6 months' worth of living expenses saved up. This may seem like a lot, but it's important to be prepared for any scenario, such as losing your job or facing a medical emergency. Building an emergency fund starts with creating a budget that works for your lifestyle. The key here is to be realistic about your expenses and income, so you know exactly where your money is going. You can start by tracking your expenses for a month and categorizing them into essential expenses like rent or mortgage payments, groceries, utilities, and non-essential expenses like dining out, entertainment, or shopping. Once you've tracked your expenses, it's time to create a budget that includes both your essential and non-essential expenses. The goal here is to find areas where you can cut back on your spending to free up more money for your emergency fund. This doesn't mean you have to give up everything you enjoy, but it's about prioritizing your spending to make room for your emergency fund. Another way to increase your savings is to find ways to increase your income. This can include picking up a side hustle or taking on more hours at work if possible. A side hustle could be something as simple as selling items you no longer need online or doing odd jobs for your neighbors. This extra income can help you reach your savings goals faster, and it's always nice to have a little extra cash on hand. It's important to remember that building an emergency fund takes time and effort, but the rewards are worth it. As you start to see your savings grow, you'll feel more secure and confident about your financial future. And remember, emergencies can happen to anyone at any time, so having an emergency fund in place can be a real lifesaver. Once you have a budget in place, it's time to start saving. Automating your savings is a powerful tool that can help you reach your financial goals faster and with less effort. Setting up automatic transfers from your checking account to your emergency fund is a simple way to make saving money a habit. You can set up these transfers to occur on a regular basis, such as weekly or monthly, depending on your preference. By automating your savings, you remove the temptation to spend the money that you intended to save. This is because the money is automatically transferred to your emergency fund before you even have a chance to spend it. This can be especially helpful for those who struggle with sticking to a budget or tend to overspend. Another benefit of automating your savings is that it can help you build your emergency fund more quickly. Even if you're only saving a small amount each week or month, those small amounts can add up over time. Plus, with automatic transfers, you won't even notice the money is missing from your checking account, making it easier to adjust to the change. Finally, automating your savings is a convenient option because it requires minimal effort on your part. Once you set up the transfers, you can sit back and let the magic happen. You won't have to worry about remembering to transfer money each month or worrying about missing a savings goal. Another tip is to prioritize your emergency fund over other savings goals, such as a vacation or a new car. While those things may be nice, they're not as important as having a financial safety net. Prioritizing your emergency fund over other savings goals is a crucial step towards building a solid financial foundation. While it's tempting to save up for something exciting like a vacation or a new car, it's important to remember that these things are not as critical as having an emergency fund in place. An emergency fund serves as a safety net for unexpected expenses like medical bills, car repairs, or job loss. Without an emergency fund, you may be forced to rely on credit cards or loans to cover these expenses, which can lead to high interest rates and a cycle of debt. By prioritizing your emergency fund, you're ensuring that you have a financial safety net in place to protect you from these unexpected expenses. Once your emergency fund is fully funded, you can then focus on saving for other goals like a vacation or a new car. It's also worth noting that building an emergency fund doesn't mean you have to give up all of your other savings goals. It's about finding a balance and prioritizing the most important goals first. For example, you could allocate a portion of your income towards your emergency fund and another portion towards your other savings goals. Finally, it's important to keep your emergency fund in a separate account that is easily accessible. You don't want to have to jump through hoops to access your money in an emergency. A high-yield savings account is a great option because it earns interest while still being easily accessible. Keeping your emergency fund in a separate account that is easily accessible is a key component of building a successful emergency fund. You don't want to have to jump through hoops or face penalties to access your money in an emergency. This is why it's important to choose the right account for your emergency fund. One of the best options for an emergency fund is a high-yield savings account. These accounts offer a higher interest rate than traditional savings accounts, meaning your money will grow more quickly over time. Plus, they typically have no fees and are FDIC insured, providing an added level of security. Another benefit of a high-yield savings account is that it is easily accessible. You can usually transfer funds from your savings account to your checking account quickly and easily, which is important in the event of an emergency. However, it's important to note that some high-yield savings accounts may have limits on the number of withdrawals you can make per month, so be sure to read the account terms carefully. When choosing a high-yield savings account for your emergency fund, be sure to compare interest rates, fees, and withdrawal limits across different banks. You may also want to consider online banks, which often offer higher interest rates than traditional banks. In conclusion, building an emergency fund is essential for financial stability and peace of mind. By creating a budget, automating your savings, and prioritizing your emergency fund, you can build a strong financial safety net. Remember, emergencies can happen to anyone, and it's important to be prepared. So, start building your emergency fund today. You'll thank yourself later. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.